The scorching afternoon sun beat down on the cracked pavement, and a little girl's desperate voice pierced through the noise of the bustling town. "Please, help my mom!" she cried, tears streaming down her dusty cheeks, her tiny hands waving frantically at a group of bikers passing by. Her voice was raw, trembling and heavy with a fear that no child should ever carry. Time seemed to slow as the bikers slowed their engines, the roar of their motorcycles fading into a tense silence. The sight of this small, trembling figure clutching a worn-out backpack in a sea of strangers instantly tugged at something primal in their hearts. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of people coming together, please take a moment to like, comment, share and subscribe to the channel. Her name was Amira, just 7 years old, and she had spent the last few hours running through the alleys of her town, her heart pounding with terror. Her mother, Mariam, had fallen gravely ill the night before. The local clinic had turned them away, citing lack of space and resources. Alone, terrified, and desperate, Amira had no one else to turn to. Every step she took was weighed down by a mix of fear and courage far beyond her years. She didn't know what she would say to these strangers, these bikers who seemed like figures from a different world, loud, strong, untouchable, but she knew that she had to try. The bikers looked at each other, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. They weren't used to children approaching them with raw, pleading fear. Most people avoided them, assuming the worst based on their leather jackets and tattoos, yet here was a child, stripped of pretense, asking for help in a way that could not be ignored. Something in Amira's voice and the sheer honesty of her desperation stirred a sense of responsibility within them. They nodded silently among themselves, a pact unspoken, and followed her as she led them down the winding streets toward her home. The journey was not long, but it felt endless to Amira. Every corner of the town seemed to whisper threats and dangers to her, but the presence of the bikers, their imposing figures flanking her, gave her a fragile thread of hope. When they arrived at the small, dimly lit house on the outskirts of town, the sight inside made their hearts ache. Mariam was lying on the floor, shivering, her face pale and streaked with sweat. Empty medicine bottles were scattered around, evidence of her futile attempts to manage her illness alone. Amira collapsed beside her mother, hugging her tightly, her tiny arms wrapping around Mariam as if she could keep the sickness away with sheer will. The bikers didn't hesitate. They took immediate action, one running to fetch water, while another checked the mother's pulse and breathing. Their hands, usually accustomed to heavy tools and engines, now gently supported a fragile human life. The scene was surreal, a juxtaposition of raw strength and tenderness, of leather jackets against frailty, of roaring engines now replaced by careful, caring movements. As they worked to make Mariam comfortable, Amira watched, her sobs slowly softening into sniffles, the terror in her eyes giving way to something almost like trust. But the town was small, and news traveled fast. By the time they called for help, neighbors had gathered outside, drawn by the unusual sight of bikers aiding a sick woman and her terrified daughter. Whispers of disbelief spread quickly. Why would they help her? They're not the type to do something like this. Yet, the bikers continued their work, ignoring the astonished gazes, focusing only on the little girl and her mother. They carried Mariam to the local clinic themselves when an ambulance finally arrived, refusing any thanks, as if the act of helping was reward enough. Amira stayed by her mother's side at the clinic, the hospital's sterile lights reflecting in her tear-filled eyes. For the first time in many long hours, she felt a flicker of hope. Her mother was still weak, still fighting, but she was alive, and that was enough for now. The bikers lingered outside, leaning against their motorcycles, watching over the house and the girl who had dared to ask for help when everyone else had turned away. They didn't seek recognition, but their actions had already begun to ripple through the town, changing perceptions and hearts. What made this moment unforgettable wasn't just the act of helping, it was the lesson it carried. Strength is not only measured by muscles or fearlessness. True strength often lies in compassion, in showing up when someone has no one else to turn to, in risking judgment to do what is right. Amira learned this that day, more profoundly than any lesson from school books or bedtime stories. She learned that kindness could appear in unexpected forms, in those society might label as outsiders, and that sometimes miracles come riding on the backs of engines, wrapped in leather and courage. Over the next few days, as Mariam began to recover, the story of the bikers' intervention spread throughout the town. People came forward with help, offering food, medicine and support, inspired by the bravery and selflessness they had witnessed. The little girl's cries had sparked a wave of humanity, reminding everyone that even in the darkest moments, light could shine if people chose to act. If this story has touched your heart, if you felt a glimmer of hope or compassion watching these strangers step into the life of a little girl and her mother, please engage with this video. Share it with someone who might need a reminder of humanity, leave a comment with your thoughts, and let your heart speak. Before we end, I have a small request. Please write in the comments how you think small acts of kindness, even from strangers, can change someone's life forever. Your words could inspire others, just like this story has inspired a whole town.